Okay, so I'm here to speak to you about promoting spoken discussion and fluency for A-level modern languages. I have got a quick explanation of how one specific resource that I keep coming back to can be really, really effective. And also I've recently put on my Twitter feed actually some examples of student work that shows what they've been able to produce using it. So this resource I adapted from what's known as a question quadrant, okay, which is all about developing questioning. And the way that I adapted it was to make it related to an image stimulus, okay? So I have used it with texts before, but actually just to focus on promoting discussion, I found that actually using an image stimulus was more effective and took away from the kind of daunting level of a difficult text. And whereas an image seems more accessible, students were able to come up with more varied and interesting ideas. And it can be done in various formats. So I have some of these sheets in A3 that are laminated that students can then just place post-its on, and then that leads to the discussion. Or they can have a smaller version that is then glued in on a piece of paper to write some ideas on before discussing them, or it can be done purely orally. Okay, so it just starts off with giving students an image stimulus. I find that this works really, really well with the stimulus cards, and particularly with AQA because they always have an image. Edexcel tend to have just the kind of extract text or the idea, but obviously we can easily find images that are related to them. It also worked well with the film study because I would take a scene that was quite important or maybe a close-up for the film that we were studying and use that as part of our image inquiry. First start, and this is in Spanish to begin with, okay, but obviously it can be easily translated. First stage is to just look and see. Okay, so they don't want to overthink it, okay? Picking out details of the image such as the colors, whether it's light or dark, whether the people are happy, sad, so emotions, picking out details of how many people there are, what gender they are, depending on the topic. And obviously if this is used to introduce a topic, which tends to work well, then that's great because they might come up with some things that are completely irrelevant, but it still promotes that discussion before you then delve into what that actually signifies. That brings me up onto the next one, which is where we're starting to get to sentence level more than vocabulary. Okay, so they write or say a short sentence where they imagine what the image is actually representing. Okay, I tend to give them like a sentence starter for this, like I imagine that, or I think that this image shows. And then this is where they start to kind of think about the topic that we're looking at and link the details that they've picked out in the first stage to the topic area. The third stage is where language-wise, it can become a bit more challenging, okay? Because the next stage is to ask questions about it, okay? What's great about the questions is that it gets them to start to think more about what this actually signifies, whether, and also cultural knowledge. So the one I'm going to show you actually is about gender roles in the family, okay, and whether they're shared between a male and a female. So the question could be linked to the target language culture. Things like, is there equality between men and women in bringing up children in Spain? Okay, or what are the traditional roles of gender in the family in Spain, for example? Okay, so that's great because it gets them to really, really think. Okay, and this is where thinking skills are really promoted with this kind of method. Finally, you'll see that stage one kind of started word level, then we've built with short sentences, then questions, and then now we get into kind of a short paragraph. This is where they should be giving their own personal interpretation, okay, of what it actually means, what it means for them, expressing their opinions, looking at maybe the two sides of the argument, depending on what the image may have been that you're looking at. I've got an example just here. This was the example I just mentioned a moment ago. And The example that I have shared on my Twitter feed actually is a similar topic, different image. So you can see different ideas that students have been able to come up with, okay? But I tend to find that there's a real dynamic when you do something like this, because especially if you're doing with post-it notes, they get the confidence of the fact that the written word is already there, and therefore they're more confident to speak out with their ideas. And like I said, this is a strategy that I just keep coming back to. It's so flexible and can be used in many, many different ways. The next stage was not just to promote discussion, but to develop fluency. And the one strategy that I've started to use fairly recently actually is a 4-3-2 method. Okay, now I'll quickly go through the details of this, but it's fairly self-explanatory. It's a method that seems to be getting used quite regularly now, and is taken from work by Gianfranco Conti, who I'm sure many of you will be aware of. I'm therefore not the expert in going through how this works, but I just want to share the kind of effectiveness that I've found in this method, and the fact that we've got a speaking topic, maybe an aspect of their IRP. They prepare notes with their main ideas, key vocabulary. Round one, they speak for 4 minutes about it. Give them a bit of time after that to kind of think about what was the key thread of what they were saying, highlight those ideas in their notes so that they come back to them. Many students, I find, tend to reinvent the wheel when you get to round two, and they start saying a brand new presentation, and that's not the idea. We want them to say the same things, but in a more condensed period of time. So we've gone from 4 minutes to 3 minutes. So it's a good idea when you're in the rest periods to get them to highlight what the key thread of their ideas are. Round two, do it for 3 minutes, have another rest, again, maybe star anything that they'd missed, star anything that was their key point of their presentation, and then the final round is to talk about the same topic for only 2 minutes. Okay, so it's a very, very simple method. I've given a link there for how to use it with speaking to kind of really embed the idea of fluency and authenticity when they're speaking. And again, very, very flexible. Okay, it could be an element of the IRP. It could be kind of a summative piece when getting to the end of a topic area. So many different possibilities. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and any questions, then please let me know in a tweet or something like that. Thank you.